Too much silver and gold will contaminate your soul. There's got to be some, you got to put on the brakes. If you've got the ability to make money, can I just be honest with you? Most of us can't handle money real well. It moves our hearts. And so we're going to see these three things worked out in the consequences. Notice the first one there. Why guard our hearts? Well, the first reason is because my heart loves money too much. Your heart has a propensity to love money and to elevate it into a place it shouldn't have. Look there, 1 Kings chapter 10, starting there in verse 21, and notice what it says. All of King Solomon's drinking vessels. So it talks about, back in verse 14, it talks about his allotment that he gets of gold. Get this. In verse 14, it says that he gets 50,000 pounds of gold a year. That's just from Israel, not from all the merchants. And you got to read it in verse 15. It talks about the merchants. It talks about other governors. It talks about others who bring him gold and stuff. So if you calculate how much that is, how many of you have, okay, get this. I want you to try and do this in your head without your phone. 50,000 pounds times 16, because you get 16 ounces for each pound, multiplied times 2,000. What do you got? A lot. That's the right answer. A lot. Yeah, your phone will freak out. It'll just like 1.6 EB. I mean, it's E9. I'm sorry. And it's more than your phone can calculate in the space. You got to turn your phone sideways. It's a tremendous amount of money. And buying power in that day, it's incomprehensible. When it says that he was the richest man on earth, from buying power standpoint, you can't even calculate it. It's crazy. How much so that even the vessels that he drinks from, silver was like a stone. It had absolutely no value. So he would make all of his cups out of gold. Like at your house. You know, when I come over to your house and you put your best out there, it's always gold, solid gold, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. And so anyways, my point simply being is that money compounds. Wisdom brings more money. He didn't put a lid. He didn't put a ceiling on that. And as a result of that, I tell people, praise God if you've got the ability to make great revenue, but you got to know this. You need to set brakes on that. Say, well, I tithe. That's great. That's good. You should be doing that no matter what. But there's going to be a point like, how much is enough? And he never sets those boundaries, and it corrupts. And you look all through history. I love what the Spartans said. It was one time asked why the Spartans didn't put a lot of money in the public treasury. The reason that they didn't do that is so that those made to be the guardians of it may not become corrupt. Well, these guys don't even know the Bible, and they got that right. There's an interesting scholar. He taught history, Greek and Roman history, University of Edinburgh. He did not believe that a democracy was a good thing. He didn't believe the republic was a good thing. He believed a monarchy was the best form of the 26 forms of government. But he made several interesting observations about a democracy and a republic. And he said this: a democracy cannot exist permanently as a form of government. It can only exist until the majority discovers that it can vote itself largesse out of, in other words, benefits, out of the public treasury. And then if I had time, he goes on there and says, once they discover that, whoever the politician is to promise to give them the more, that's the person that they'll vote for. In other words, money will corrupt them. They don't care what happens to the nation. They don't care what happens to their children. It's about the benefits that they can get from themselves. And I get benefits by taking it from you and giving it to me. It's fast. I mean, that was written 300 years ago. And we're seeing it worked out today. Why? Because people love money. The love of money is the root of all sorts of what? Evil. Why do people smuggle drugs across the border? Why are people trafficking young women? Why are people trafficking their children? Why does that happen? Because people love money more than righteousness, more than they love God. And throughout the Bible, so it's constantly giving us instruction not to be conceited or fix our hope on the uncertainty of riches, but God who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. Listen, financial blessing is a blessing, but it's for us to manage for the glory of God, not as an end unto itself. I so love Proverbs 30, when the prayer is offered, it says, 2 things I have asked of you, Lord. Don't refuse me. Keep me from those who are liars and deceivers. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Now listen to the wisdom of this. This is a prayer of wisdom. Listen to this. Feed me with the food that is my portion, that I may be full and not deny you. And say, who is the Lord? So in other words, if I get too much, then I'm going to say, who is the Lord? I don't need God. Or that that I'm not in want and steal. I mean, the two extremes, right? And profane God's holy name. So he says, God, just help me to be content with the portion, the allotment that you give me. That is really huge. That is wisdom right there. And it's true for every generation. It's true for every nation. It's true. That's a wisdom statement and a wisdom example of prayer in every generation, in every economy.